folks, welcome to the channel. I'm Don. I am taking a look at the subject of free will. I think I did another one on this one. It might have been I recently, actually. But this is Prager University's thing. That showed up in my feed. And I love these kinds of topics of free will. And they do touch on theology. And it's room for debate always, where if God is in control of everything, do we have free will? If there's no God and everything is reductionist and we're just biological and physical chemical reactions, do we have free will? And there have been recent neuroscientific studies with MRIs, fMRIs, and so forth, these intricate studies, because we can now look into the brain from outside, which is how we'd have to do it. And we're able to predict based on a limited number of criteria thought-wise as far as what the person is going to choose. And there was a study I listened to recently that involved a fair number of people. The people who designed the experiment were able to come up with something like an 87% accurate prediction rate based on 5 conditions. If you were presented with these 5 conditions, what would you choose? And they were able to predict 87% of the time what the person would choose. So that suggests certain things. Any study like that is fraught with difficulties and can be challenged and can be interpreted differently. But the idea of free will is a fascinating one. And it's philosophical, it's theological, it's physical. Here we go.
In the external or physical world, we're all aware of standard cause and effect, right? You know, object A acts upon object B with force X. We all get that because it applies to just about everything from electrons to athletes. But now consider events in your internal or mental world. What causes your thoughts? Some of our thoughts have external causes, like when we touch something and suddenly realize it's hot. We don't deliberate whether or not to pull our hand away, right? Our brain has already fired the instruction to do so, involuntarily. In some strange sense, we didn't really pull our hand away at all, because we didn't choose to do it.
Hahnemann and Tversky did studies, and I think they named it System 1 and System 2, where you've got System 1, which is this. Immediate responses. You're not thinking about it. And that's the fast system. And then the System 2, I think I have this right, is the slower, more deliberate, contemplative state. Let's see where they go with this.
Our brain did it before consulting us.
Yeah.
A second cause of our thoughts is internal. Say you're thinking about giving a big presentation, and as you do so, you get increasingly nervous and your blood pressure and your heart rate jump up. Now, nothing external is acting upon you. You're doing all the causing internally, right? Your anxious thoughts are causing your brain to send signals to your heart, and we get that. But now I want you to consider a third category of your thoughts. It's your conscious choices. Something as simple as choosing where to go for lunch. Now, when you introspect, when you think about your thinking, do you believe that you're the active agent in charge of the process, or that you're just a passive recipient of the instruction, that you have no choice in the matter? It's all external forces, be they environmental, genetic, chemical, biological, or neurological. In other words, do you think all your thoughts have external causes beyond your control, or do you think that you control some, if not most, of your thoughts?
This is I like this, the way this is being presented right here. The external part. Now, the person who believes that God's in control, when I used to run in Christian circles, this was a very common expression people would use. God put it on my heart to fill in the blank. God put it on my heart to call you. So how are you? It kind of makes, when you make that statement, you can't gainsay that to someone. Like, oh no, God didn't put that on your heart. I mean, you can, but when you run in certain circles, you're not going to do that. You're not going to rock the boat. And you like the idea that, oh, maybe God's looking out for me through you. And this is going to turn out to be a good thing. But that notion that when God's in control and is overseeing everything, The causes are external, by and large. And then the backtracking begins when you do something yourself that may be wrong. Then, well, God had nothing to do with that part of it. So, well, is God in control of all of our actions or not? This is where there are problems with that, at least that view that God's in control. Then others will take it further and say there is no God. But this, I don't know where we're going to go with the reductionist side of this thing, or is everything just simply internal, biological?
Now let's stay with our lunch example for a second. Back to the question. I ask you, where do you want to go for lunch today? Now, if all you are is a brain, an exhaustively physical system of neurons and synapses, then there's no you that's going to be making a choice.
Well, it might
at
be
all.
you, though.
Your thought processes are basically just a complex series of colliding electron dominoes crashing into one another. It's just physical cause and effect, right? Something that can be exhaustively understood in terms of physics and chemistry. There's no you that's an agent that's deliberating or choosing or exercising free will. And that's
Newton
why
said this basically.
if you are just a brain, you cannot have free will. You would just be a physical machine, a very complex but programmed computer. But if you're something more than your brain, if you're the thing that has the brain, then when I ask you, where do you want to go for lunch? You're going to start deliberating. You're going to be weighing your taste preferences, the commute time, perhaps even counting calories. You'd be weighing various reasons to choose one place over another. You wouldn't be caused to think about any of these things. You would choose to think about these things, and you could stop anytime you wanted to. So what we have here, therefore, are two different types of things, an immaterial mind and the material brain. You are the thing that has the brain. You are not your brain. Now look, even if you were the world's foremost brain expert and you knew what was happening with every electron in someone's brain at a specific particular moment, you still wouldn't have a clue about what's going on inside that person's mind. Surgeons can have access to my brain, but only I have access to my mind.
Or when we say that person's out of their mind, the notion of a mind versus a brain. The brain to me is what we consider to be the brain. It's where the neuroreceptors are within the cranial cavity, within the skull. The mind to me is not something external. It's the rest of our body that's feeding the information to it. So that the mind, as he said, the word spirit showed up on the screen, or it's something external. It's immaterial. To me, the mind actually is material. It isn't just, oh, I was thinking through this process. It's, when I stub my toe, my brain gets the signals. That to me is part of my mind, which can cause me to go out of my mind with pain, if you will. But just because a neurosurgeon doesn't understand everything that's going on doesn't mean that I'm making my own choices. It just means that our reference frame is very limited in terms of what we can divine, if you will, for what another person's happening with them.
This is what makes you human and not a machine. Psychology, the study of the mind, is not reducible to physics and biology and chemistry. Yet, there are many materialists, people who believe that physical matter is all that exists, that the only reality, including every thought, every feeling, every mind, every will, all of this is totally explained in terms of matter in motion, simply physical phenomena. These materialists believe that we're no more than robots and that free will is an illusion, a myth. Now, why do they believe this? Because they understand that the moment they acknowledge that free will exists, that there really is an immaterial you beyond the physical realm, that there really is a mind, not just a brain, then there has to be something non-physical that accounts for our non-physical minds. Now, when you exercise your free will and you choose to think about all of this, you're going to probably reason, just like I did, that there's a great mind that accounts for the origin of your mind. But again, that's your choice. It's evidence of your free will. I'm Frank Pastore for Prager University.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's interesting when we even contemplate the subject of a physical being, not just a person, but a desk, a laptop. When we look at what constitutes these physical entities, it turns out that they're by and large empty space. There's nothing there. It's just electrons and neutrons being held together, and then we call that, some people call it gravity or electrical force, or there are some folks on the channel who have advanced degrees who will be able to explain sort of like the theories of what holds them together at such absurdly high speeds, and they don't just blow apart, what those forces are, the electromagnetic forces, whatever they may be. But by and large, there's a reason neutrinos rarely crash into anything, and they just pass through everything right now, going through our bodies. And I saw something that the sun is so dense that it takes a neutrino from the core or near the core of the sun roughly 7 million years to get out, if you will. It's so densely compact that a neutrino, which I think they travel at the speed of light, I have no reason to think otherwise, when they escape, blast out, go right through everything, because most, even lead, most of it is empty space. And that just seems hard to imagine because we have our own frame of reference. We humans each do. So when we pick something up, we pick up a little piece of lead, it's very heavy. And or we punch a wall, it hurts, because it seems like that's what we refer to as a physical object. But what does that mean, that it's a physical object? And this is where it gets a little bit more closing in on what constitutes a mind versus a brain, and it can fuel most of your energies and direct you in terms of whether or not you're making a choice. But the idea of reductionism or materialism, as he said, materialism in this, but that everything can be reduced to a physical property. Here's the thing. Every thought we have does show up in some form on an MRI, or I don't know if they do fMRIs for these, but when they've studied the brain, there's always neural activity. So there is what we would call physical activity going on in the brain. And that's where the atheistic argument gains support, because it doesn't require some external entity, some external being. However we humans came about, my brain does certain things, and that directs my choices. I think I'm making the choice. I think I have metacognition, which is thinking about what you're thinking about, but that might just be another part of the process of not having free will. I mean, our metacognitive processes might be those things that are in control, if you will, and that might be part of the origin where we offload that analysis, if you will, that assessment, and saying, well, that meta part is God helping me make my choice. Now, we each have our own way of inputting data, if you will, inputting information, and then using those as part of our arguments. But do we have free will? Things do reduce, certainly, to physical elements. Our bodies, our brains, our minds, wherever, there is a physical representation of what it is that we're doing. So does that suggest that everything is physical? And it really gets down to what you believe, and like he said. But even that doesn't dismiss the notion that there might be some creative energy, some creative being out there that brought matter into existence. I don't argue either way for it. It's one of these things where it is, it's just fun to contemplate. So have at it, folks. I know some folks think, nope, we don't have free will. We're just these physical beings. And then even though we think we're thinking, so to speak, we're not. We're not making these choices. I simply am, a la Descartes. I think, therefore I am. But am I making these choices? Is it some scientist, evil, mad scientist, and I'm a brain in a vat thinking I'm making all these choices and such? I don't know. But then that evil scientist, is that scientist making choices on his or her its own. Just fun to contemplate. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Leave your thoughts. Have a great day. See you on another video, and keep thinking theology or whatever you're going to think. Hey, folks, if you want to take the personality test that I created for my life coaching practice, which is based on the book that I wrote, put your phone up, turn it on camera, and focus on this, and it'll take you to it. And it'll take you about 20 minutes to complete the test. It's free, and you'll get some information on your personality. It's quite detailed, quite revealing. It's kind of fun as well. And I'll be leaving this QR code up on the wall behind me for my regular videos. So I hope you take it, and I hope you enjoy it.